This is the New York City FC Pregame Live. Tonight, New York City heads back on the road to take on the Columbus Crew. And now, here are your hosts, Glenn Crooks and Matty Lawrence.
All right, Lower.com Field, the beautiful home of the Columbus Crew SC, one of the original players here in Major League Soccer, born in 1996. And here they are, having developed along the way at different times as one of the top teams in MLS, and that's the case under Wilfred Nancy. New York City under their first-year manager, Pascal Janssen. And they, are visiting with him for the first time here in Columbus. And as New York City looks to, do a little bit better when they're in Columbus. I'm Glenn Crooks. There's Matty Lawrence. And let's see. Can we get into the center? There we go. There we go. Great to have you with us. As the stage is set here. New York City has played 14 times since their inception in 2015 here in Columbus. First at Cruz Stadium, the old Mop Phrase Stadium, and then 5 games here at Lower.com. 1 win, and it was back in 2017, and that was a significant moment, too, because it was Yangel Herrera, the teenager who was on loan for Manchester City, who came in and essentially permanently replaced Andrea Pirlo in the starting group. He had a goal and an assist in that game. Jack Harrison had 2 goals in that game as New York City beat Columbus 3-2. The only time they beat Columbus on the road. So that's what's up against them. A lot of different teams have come and go. But, Matty, before we really get going here, I do want to introduce I just got back into town today because I was with my family. It was a mini vacation, but my children have been raised properly as they are Grateful Dead fans, like their father and their mother to a certain extent, but she was not going to be left behind as we took ourselves to Las Vegas, Nevada, and there's my gang, and that's me on the left, and that's my son Ryan, my wife Mary, and my daughter Morgan. That is the Sphere, ladies and gentlemen. And so we saw Dead and Company, John Mayer on guitar, so he's replaced Jerry Garcia along the way, and that's him in the middle. And Bobby Weir, 77 years old, man, he was fantastic. But the graphics and all the different things that happened were just sensational. So many of you have probably heard of the Sphere or kind of heard about it. U2 was the first performer there, and then they did 40 shows. The Dead have done, I think, upwards of 20 now, Dead and Company, and I just wanted to share because it really was a kind of a magical experience. It's great to be with our family again because my daughter lives far away and my son is, he's out and about, and so we don't see each other as a group that often. So I'm in great spirits, Matty.
Spirits being the operative word.
Yes. So what do you think about this one? So we'll get back to the game now. So and the thing I wanted to ask you as a former player is, over the years, obviously, every year it's a different team. Yeah. And in many cases, it's a different coach for New York City, yet the struggles in Columbus. Is there any way to calculate the difficulties?
Well, yeah, look, Columbus are very good. I don't think it matters which New York City FC team turns up. Columbus Crew are a very good team. They won MLS Cup in 2020, won MLS Cup in 2023. They're managed by Wilfred Nancy, one of the best, if not the best, in MLS as well, Glenn. I don't think it overly matters which NYCFC team turns up because Columbus Crew are always very, very good. But of course, any team in MLS, because of the parity, are beatable. But you need to perform to the best of your ability. And quite often, Columbus Crew need to underperform slightly to stand a chance, certainly here at Lower.com Field, to beat them. They're a good team. There's no getting away from that fact, Glenn. I think it would be remiss of us to say anything other than that. It's a tough game on their hands.
Now, both teams are missing players as MLS. 28 of the 30 teams are participating during the international break. There have been a couple of games already completed in Major League Soccer. We'll go over that in a moment. But New York City will focus on them. The big loss is quite obvious. Alonso Martinez got a pair of assists for Costa Rica as they blitzed Belize 7-0 on international duty. So that puts Monsef Bakrar front and center, who had the job taken away from him last year by Martinez.
Look, Monsef Bakrar almost can't do any worse than he's been doing. So, and that feels like that's an unkind thing to say, but a centre forward is judged purely, really, on what they do in terms of hitting the back of the net, and he has done that incredibly infrequently. Alonso Martinez is a massive loss for this team because there is nobody in this squad who can replicate what he does, or nobody has shown us that they can yet.
Yeah.
And Alonso Martinez has done it over a number of months, if not over a year.
22 goal contributions in the 33 games he's played for New York City.
That's pretty good. It's pretty impressive. That's what kind of production rate you want. It's up there, maybe not quite up there with the Messis of this world or those kind of players, or who we've seen, Hani Mukhtar and those type of players. I know Mukhtar's obviously more of a 10 than a centre forward. But if we're talking about pure production, Alonso Martinez really does the business for NYCFC, and there's not another guy out there like him. So take him out of the side. Santi Rodriguez was lost relatively recently. James Sands was lost as well. So you've got the whole spine of the team has dissipated, really, and it makes it hard when you're coming to a place like this to do well. But
here's what the supporters want. Kevin Rogers.
Find those shooting boots. Yeah.
Find the shooting boots.
He's got the shooting boots. They've just got to be in the right place. It's got to be aimed at the back of the net. That's the problem, and that's really beleaguered him throughout his career here at New York City FC. The positive, though, Glenn, we always have to look at the positives, and that's that Columbus Crew are missing a lot of good players.
Yeah.
It's still a very good team that they're going to put out today, but they're missing some very important pieces of the Columbus Crew jigsaw because the better players are off on international duty and they're missing a fair few.
Max Arfson on one side and Mo Farsi on the other, who have both played very well against New York City in the past. But back to Bakrar in for Martinez for a moment. At his weekly presser, Pascal Janssen addressed the Bakrar replacement of Alonso Martinez, and Martinez absent because of this international break.
Unfortunately, Alonso has been called up for the national duty, but that's also a privilege to be there. We just have to deal with the fact that he's not with us, and Monsef has been working really hard from day one to get his chance as a number 9. It's not an easy battle to be in competition with Alonso, so this is his opportunity to show where he's at the moment. We have all the confidence in him to have a good striker up front. Obviously, his profile is just a little bit different than Alonso's, but playing-wise, we won't adjust anything. It's just making sure that we understand his qualities in order to be successful with Monsef up front instead of Alonso.
So Bakrar has played 87 minutes of football, 4 games, has just 1 shot attempt, and I thought the most interesting aspect of that is we're not changing anything, but our players need to identify how to play in the ball, in essence, compared to a Martinez. They both have pace, but Bakrar is of a different ilk.
Yeah, I think Bakrar likes more physical contact at times. I think Alonso Martinez is the player who's going to play on that last shoulder, the last defender, and run in behind. So I think that's where he thrives. And also, Alonso Martinez comes alive in the penalty area, and I've yet to see that from Monsef Bakrar. And that's got nothing really to do with the other players per se. It's Alonso Martinez finds himself in the right place at the right time when balls are rebounding off goalkeepers, as we saw in the last game.
Right.
There's no way you can coach that positional sense that Alonso Martinez had, that the ball would be spooned out to him there, because it was a good save in that game, at the New England Revolution game, and it was a terrific finish. They are different types of players, and it's hard to really put your finger on what Bakrar's true qualities are as a centre forward, apart from working hard on the other side of the ball. I don't truly know what he wants as a centre forward. I don't know whether he wants crosses into the box, whether he wants them high, whether he wants them low, whether he wants them cut back onto the penalty spot. I've watched him a number of times, Glenn, and I don't know what his true attributes as a goal-scoring number 9 are, because we haven't seen him score many goals.
You mentioned Martinez, the goal last week, and it was the game winner. And the player who took the shot that forced the save by Ivicic was Keaton Parks.
Yeah.
And his name came up in the weekly presser as well. Someone who has been pretty influential in the midfield for New York City of late. Here's Pascal Janssen again on Parks.
Well, the thing is, we're trying to add this to his game. Obviously, Keaton is a very good player and very important player for the way we want to play. So we're looking for a good balance in order to have our quality midfield players on the ball when needed. So there will be moments that he has to come down and play a little deeper. But there is also quite a few moments where he can play more closer to the strikers or to the attackers. But it's more like we're trying to add more things to his game in order to be more included and even more important for the team than he was before.
Add some things to his game. I like the wording though to that, as opposed to change his game.
Yeah.
Add to his game.
Well, yeah, and add assists and goals, because that's what you need from your centre midfielders, because there isn't much goal-scoring production from anybody apart from Alonso Martinez. Not in large swathes. There certainly wasn't last season, apart from Santi Rodriguez, and he's not here. There wasn't enough production coming from the wide areas. We've talked quite a bit about Hannes Wolf not producing up until very recently. Haven't seen a great deal from Julian Fernandez when he's been playing, or Ojeda. So it's down to the centre midfielders as well. There has to be more production from the other players around it, and that includes centre halves, Glenn, coming up from corners. They've got to provide you.
Do you agree or disagree?
I think with the number of changes that not number, there's been quite a few changes that both sides have put out. I think it is at times hard for the teams to gel as a defensive unit. So I'd be surprised if it was 0-0 from that point alone. But yeah, if you had to pick where the goals are coming specifically from the New York City FC side, it would be hard. You know where they're coming from Columbus Crew. They're coming from Russell Rowe. They're coming from Diego Rossi. Somebody who's proved time upon time, whether it's in Turkey with Fenerbahce, whether it's out west with LAFC, he's got goals and assists in his game. He's a very, very good player. So he's somebody who hasn't disappeared on international duty. Unfortunately for him, in a way, he's Uruguayan. So they've got a very, very strong team, and especially in those forward-thinking areas. So it's hard for him to break into that team. So, yes, of course, it's not unfortunately he's Uruguayan per se. I just mean in terms of him breaking into the Uruguayan national team. If he was American, if he was Canadian, possibly if he was Colombian, maybe if he's Venezuelan, he'd be off on international duty, that's for certain.
Well, that's Matty Lawrence. I'm Glenn Crooks. We've got the live commentary for you, radio commentary, coming up at 7:15. That's when it kicks off with the pregame show featuring Pascal Janssen. My broadcaster brother on the Spanish side, Roberto Abramowitz, took charge of the pregame interview presented by Ford with Pascal Janssen. So that's all coming up on the radio side, followed by our live commentary here from lower.com field. There it is. This is the New York City end where they're warming up right now. That's the goalkeepers area. And the goalkeepers have a little bit of a different look. Yeah. Matt Freese will start, as you can see. If you're watching this, you can see the starting 11 where New York City has made 3 changes. But with Tomas Romero away with El Salvador here during the international break, you've got Greg Ranjit Singh in the squad for the first time, I believe. Maybe he came in as a third.
No, he's been in the squad last week. He was
that's
in the
right,
squad,
because they had 2. Well, there's 2 keepers in the 20 again. Alex Rando, he is one of the short-term loans that was announced this morning by New York City, along with a 17-year-old Jamaican forward who is racking up goals for the 2 team for New York City and MLS Next Pro, Seymour Reed. And then the 16-year-old Peter Molinari, who got a few minutes in preseason at the Coachella Invitational. So short-term loans bring those 3 players up from the 2 team into the squad today. But when we look at the starters, Matty, for New York City, the 3 changes. Burke Risa back in at center back. That puts Justin Hack back into the midfield. That puts Johnny Shore, after consecutive starts, on the bench as a reserve. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think Johnny Shore deserved to be in the starting lineup, but also I understand protecting a young body and protecting a young mind. I think at the age of 17,
you can't expect him to be mentally capable and physically capable of playing every single week. And sometimes just take him out of that firing line and maybe introduce him again next week or the week after, or even today. Who knows? He may have to come on if somebody gets injured. So make sure he's mentally ready.
Or for Maxi Morales, when
Absolutely.
Pascal Janssen went over his options if Maxi can't play the full 90, the first name that was brought forward was Johnny Short. Now, that makes your midfield a little bit different. And how you have to sort everything out, the rotations and things. But
for me, the only way I'd want Johnny Shaw to be replacing Maxi Morales is if you're winning in the last 20, 30 minutes. I think if you're level, or maybe if you consider level a good result, you can do it. But if you're losing, certainly you want it to be somebody with more attacking impetus, that's for sure. I know Johnny Shaw has the ability to get forward, but you'd want to see, can Carrizo do something? Can Ojeda come into that central position? Can Julian Fernandez even? I think there are Hannes Wolf. I think there's a number of players who can do that. It may not be their preferred position, but you would rather them who are more forward-thinking than possibly Johnny Shaw. That's if you need a goal. That's all I'm saying.
The other change is what we said. Burke Risa and Monta Pakrar is in, and then Kevin O'Toole back in at left back in place of Nico Cavallo, who was injured last week, a little over 20 minutes into the game, and he's not available today. So he's got an injury that's going to put him on the sideline for a few weeks, it would seem. Unfortunate for him, he gets his first career start, and then Pascal Janssen has to go through some maneuvering at the back with Burke Risa playing left back and Hack next to him. That was the adjustment made last week.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate for him that he got injured. I think he'd have stepped aside anyway because O'Toole was only suspended last week. I think O'Toole is the first choice. He'd come back in. But to have your first start and then to go off, not only with an injury that makes you go off in that specific game, the New England Revolution game, one that looks as though it's going to keep him out. This is pure speculation. It looked like it was a groin injury, so he's going to be out for 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know that, but my assumption would be it's something like that. I think if it was just a little tweak, Cavallo in his first start would have really soldiered on until at least half time. If it's a minor tweak, and again, this is pure speculation. I haven't spoken to him, I haven't spoken to the medical stuff. It's just what I get, the feel I get as a player. And looking at Cavallo as a human and as an athlete, he would soldier on for as long as he could, unless it was bad. So my assumption is that it's a, not bad, but it's certainly a groin injury that keeps him out for 2 or 3 weeks, yes.
On the Columbus side, just looking at their lineup, Patrick Schulte is with the U.S. men's national team, which we don't have time to talk about that. I have not watched the game in full. I was away as I introduced the broadcast.
Lucky man.
Yes, and I've just read some of the reports, and Pochettino's quote that it was painful to watch the first half. Man, when the manager says it was painful.
And he's getting paid to watch as well. Imagine those people, the supporters at SoFi paid to watch, or us sitting at home mercilessly.
Well, the U.S.
watching.
is still playing Mexico, but unfortunately, Canada. They wanted to play Canada, but both of them lost their matches. But on the Evan Bush will replace Patrick Schulte. So when you lose your keeper, I think that's a match.
I agree.
Bush has played a lot of games in MLS. He's 35 years old. I mean, he's
39.
Wait a minute. No, I actually have that. So what are you, Evan Bush? Where are you, Evan Bush? And how old are you?
Well, I was on FOTMOB and I had that he was 39.
He's 38 years old. He's 38 from Concord, Ohio. That's what I have.
Wow.
So
he's old anyway.
Hey, but
he's old.
Experienced.
He's experienced, but he's only ever been a starter. Look, he's been a professional for upwards of 15 years. He's only really been a starter for 4 or 5 years.
In those Montreal years,
he is an archetypal number 2 goalkeeper.
Well, he's played 6 times, and this is his 6 times with Columbus, and this is his fifth season.
He's a number 2 goalkeeper. So what you do know with older heads and number 2 goalkeepers especially is that they're mentally attuned to the game. They know what they are. They know they're not going to play that many games. But I'm with you. The cohesion and the relationship he has grown with his back line, or you want to grow when you're a goalkeeper, is not there. It's negligible. There's no such thing. So, yes, it will be a test for him as an old, experienced goalkeeper, but also for those defenders who are not going to trust him as much as they do Patrick Schulte. That's just human nature. As a defender, you don't quite know what you're going to get from Evan Bush. Yeah, they'll have trained with him, but not been out there on a match day. It will be different for them, and it will be difficult.
Another 30-year-old will be in the lineup. He's 34, Darlington Nagbe. Now, I want to share something with you, Matty. I think you'll enjoy this. I had a wonderful interview for my SiriusXM show, which has a focus on coaching, education, player development, that sort of thing. And I had seen a post-game interview with a DC United midfielder. He's 22 years old. His name is Jose Kojima. And this interview was so articulate in its description of how he scored the game-winning goal, and he learned about how to make these certain movements when he was in college and scored goals like that for Wake Forest under Bobby Muse. And I was just like, wow, I want to contact this guy and get him on the air. And, well, he didn't disappoint, because what I heard from Bobby Muse, his college coach, is that all he does is watch tape himself. And so I kind of focused on that with asking him about what he watches and why. And Darlington Nagbe becomes a focus. This is pretty cool.
Right now, what I'm watching a lot of is Columbus Crew within our league. So I really like how Darlington Nagbe plays within that system he plays safe, but doesn't play safe in the sense that if he gets, the ball right in the middle of the field with pressure on his back, he doesn't necessarily play back one touch, which was something I'm really interested in. Probably the number one thing I took away is that he uses his body very, very well to protect the ball. And he doesn't lose it much. If you watch
No, he doesn't.
He probably won't lose the ball once. And he's still going forward and taking risks. That's what's really surprising to me. If the player behind him is pressing him one way, he'll go the other. And he has the full awareness to do that. In such a chaotic situation. Columbus Crew being a tilting team, meaning they basically tilt all their players to one side. What I call it is positional relationism, but they tilt all their players to one side. And for Nagbe to do that within that small space is extraordinary. And to not lose it for thousands and 2000s of touches and minutes is just surprising. So I just try to take, his awareness, his IQ side of the game, as well as the way he moves.
Right. So that's a DC United midfielder. The 22-year-old Jose Kojima, who he's playing full-time for DC United right now. But how about just breaking down a guy who's one of the best in MLS and doing it to that extent, and then also recognizing how Columbus plays and sorting it all out there. The tilted, the positional relationism. He is the only player in MLS that would use those two words to describe how Columbus plays, I think.
No, I think you're right. And look, the one thing I take away from that, firstly, obviously, he as a character wants to educate himself, wants to learn more and more. He's a young player growing into the game, growing into the profession. But Nagbe himself, awareness. That's the one word, the one thing I will take out of that. And that about any good players. He spoke about, in the DC United player there, spoke about the fact that Darlington Nagbe is aware of all the players around him. Any good footballer anywhere in the world is aware of everybody around them, and probably almost everybody else on the field.
It's 360, and right? It's 360, touch, is it not?
Yeah, your first touch takes you away from the opposition player, and more often than not, you put your body in between the opposition player and the ball, and that's how you protect the ball, because if you feel a touch from the opposition player in the modern game, you can go over and you can win yourself a free kick. Protecting the ball is exactly that, all about getting yourself in between the ball and the opposition player.
Kojima is starting in the midfield again for DC United against Orlando City. DC United is unbeaten through 4. They're one of 7 unbeaten teams. Now 3 draws and a win. So the point total is not where it will ultimately need to be, perhaps, to get into the playoffs, which is their there, Mark. But now I'm going to watch this kid a little bit more closely, and I'm going to maybe recognize the tilt of the field today, Matty.
I think you will, and we know that Columbus Crew are very well schooled, aren't they? They're very well drilled, well coached by Wilfried Nancy, and yes, I think many people around MLS will recognise the qualities of course, the qualities of this Columbus Crew side. I said it, they've won the MLS Cup in 2020 and 23. Twice in the last 5 years. They must be doing something right.
And the guy Nagby, how many titles has he been involved with starting in college?
Well, exactly.
We didn't even go back to his youth days. I mean, he might have won some youth titles. Who knows? But
he won College Cup with Akron in 2010, won the Herman Trophy himself, personal accolade 2010, 4 MLS Cups as well across Portland,
2 with Columbus,
Atlanta, 2 with Columbus, won the Campeones Cup, won the US Open Cup. He's a born
Leagues
winner.
Cup. Don't forget Leagues Cup.
Leagues Cup as well. Look, he's a born winner, as is Caleb Porter at New England Revolution. We haven't seen it quite. As is Zawadzki, and we'll go into that, I'm sure, during the in-game commentary when we talk about the 24-year-old, a decade younger than Nagby, the American-born Zawadzki as well, who plays in either the middle of midfield or plays as centre-half for Columbus Crew.
Well, the question today, as we're going to conclude this and get ready for our live commentary, is can New York City make up for the loss of Alonso Martinez? It's a fair question because not only has he scored 3 of their 6 goals, he's been involved in 5 of their 6 goals. So Julian Fernandez, Monsef Bakar, Maxi Morales, Keaton Parks, who's going to Hannes Wolf, who is going to be the 1 or 2 or 3?
Somebody has to step up, and that's what you want to do. And let's not also forget, Glenn, we were going to give a little shout out to our Columbus Crew colleagues, or maybe not colleagues, but people we are affiliated with.
I think it's important, and I thank you for the reminder, Matty, because I think it's important that we acknowledge people sometimes for what they do, especially when we go on the road and you come into maybe a less familiar situation and how you're taken care of. And we are our own engineers. When you hear the broadcast, yes, well, I do a bulk of it. Matty does unplug things at the end of the night, but
not always well.
And so Gabrielle, Gabby, and Kevin, who are part of the operations staff here and have been and have helped us every time we've come into lower.com, I do want to give them, and we want to give them a shout out because they make life comfortable for us, which happens at most facilities, and we're going to make an effort, including our own facility with Matt Pellegrino. So these are the people that can help us be prepared, be comfortable going in. There's a little stress doing a broadcast. I mean, you got all this stuff going on, and you want to make sure that we, call the right goals and those kinds of things. You know
absolutely.
what I'm saying?
And not forgetting the chickpea salad and the wonderful array of food as well in the
that's right
in the media room. But yes, on a serious note, everybody has helped us here at lower.com field has been absolutely
and Esteban
tremendous.
in communications for Columbus Crew as well, who phoned to make sure that we had everything set before we even got to the stadium
100%.
today. So these things. And Matty said this earlier today, and I'm going to join him on this. I think I've been on this bandwagon for a while, but you need reminders, and that is, it's pretty easy to be kind to people and speak kindly to people, even when it's maybe not going well for you at the moment. So we'll endeavor to be that way, Matty. And I'm going to test you.
As long as NYCFC win.
I'm going to test you on the broadcast tonight. If there's another own goal, I'm going to test the kindness of Matty Lawrence. All right, we got to get out of here. I'm Glenn. He's Matty. Thanks for joining us here, and I hope you'll join us for the live commentary. You have to sync up the video and the audio. You know how to do it. Get it done, and we look forward to speaking to you as New York City tries to get a rare victory in Columbus coming up in a few minutes. Talk to you soon.